Welcome, Dynasty Theory listeners. Coach Dan here tonight. My boys, JB and Mitch, they are out like George Kittle and Brock Purdy. They got shoulder and hamstring injuries. I can't help it, but I got their backs tonight. We miss them. We love them. They'll be back next week. And of course, in the Discord around the clock there. But a lot to talk about here. Dynasty Reset episode number 305. Chat, I need you to be lively tonight. I've got a few rapid fires, a lot of thoughts from week one, but I have no one to throw the penalty and challenge flag on with John and Mitch not here. So I might have to throw it on you. I look forward to hearing your feedback and your thoughts as well as we break down week one. What do we do with our dynasty rosters? Are we pausing or panicking? Man, I'll just kick off with last night's game. That was fun. I don't know what you think. Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears. We saw a lot tonight. I know Mitch was rearing and ready to go as he was anticipating Caleb Williams' struggles week one. Him and I are on opposite spectrums there of Caleb. I love Caleb. He's a little more skeptical. Where are you on Caleb Williams last night? Are there pivot opportunities? Are we concerned at all with Caleb Williams? As I watched that game last night, I was actually kind of impressed. It was a little bit of what I expect out of Caleb. Man, he had some Patrick Mahomes-like moments, dare I say, the way he was moving out of that pocket and making some things happen. But we also saw some missed opportunities there out of Caleb Williams. I think Ben Johnson's going to just need a little bit more time to settle him down. But he flashed a lot. It just, unfortunately, he let a game that the Bears should have won. They had a nice lead, and he let that slip away. And J.J. McCarthy, man, he had ice in his veins, really carrying the Vikings back for a 27-24 win. But, hey, Caleb Williams, 210 yards and one touchdown. We need a little bit more out of that, Dynasty owners, right? But we saw a little bit of Rome. I would have liked to have seen some more Loveland. DJ Moore flashed. Ben Johnson was creative in how he used DJ Moore. I was a little bit worried how they were going to spread that ball around. Is there enough to go around? And we need Caleb to keep developing to spread that ball around. But I think the Vikings got a really good defense, man. Like, that's a tough matchup week one for a young quarterback still figuring out Ben Johnson's offense, getting rid of those mistakes from last year. And as I look in the chat here, man, I think Buckeye DK, you're with me, man. Sean, Almade had a burden. That was painful last night a little bit. I had Almade in my DFS lineup, took him out, and then here he is getting fed. But I do agree with Buckeye. I think Caleb will be better this year, no doubt. I think we just got to be a little patient. I think, he'll probably bounce back in week two, not facing a Brian Flores defense. Coach Johnson's going to get on him this week for the things that he tried to do too much and press, and I think we'll see more of him. And then J.J. McCarthy, I really liked his mobility, his ability to step up in the pocket there, to be down like he was, 17-6 down going into the fourth quarter and to lead 21 points for Minnesota in the fourth, got J-Jet going a little bit. Very encouraged there with J.J. McCarthy, because he was one of the unknowns, I think, going into the week. Hey, Caleb, we need to settle down and elevate. I think J.J., we didn't really know, but I think once he settled down and figured things out, you saw the maturity, and I think he'll develop as well this year. So you J.J. McCarthy owners, be happy there. Monkey Pack, 9-1 this week. I'm getting button happy, man. The chat's coming through here pretty quick, so that means you guys are lively tonight, and I love that. But 9-1 week. It was ugly but happy, and I think that's a little bit what we want to talk about tonight. How did everybody do in their week ones? I think I was above 500 in my dynasty matches. A little bit more of the higher stakes. I had a little more success, a little bit of lower stakes, a little less. Most of my rosters are set up to contend. I do got a couple rebuilds going this year, just trying some different things. But what we got to figure out is, hey, how much is of a 9-1 type week is week one versus, hey, should we still be active on this with our rosters, and what do we do with some of those guys? So let me dive into it here. We're going to play a little game, pause or panic rapid fire. All right, now it's not me, John, and Mitch, so it's going to be rapid fire with the audience tonight. I'm going to give you my rapid fire take on these guys, and then I'll see some of your comments that come in. Are we selling these players for less than we wanted last week? Or are we holding because they're going to bounce back? All right, I have 21 players here for you. I'm going to minimize the commentary. just we could discuss in more detail if you like, but we're going to push a little bit more of that to the Patreon. All right. But pause or panic, Trevor Lawrence. D-Law, right? Jaguars, nice 26-10 win, but 178 yards and a touchdown, 19 for 31 passing. That was maybe a little more underwhelming than Caleb Williams last night. I had a pause there. I'm with Hillbilly Sean. I see a bunch of pauses. I think we're all thinking the same thing, maybe. Leon Colm offense. I mean, Brian Thomas only one reception. How often is that going to happen, right? But we saw Travis Hunter getting involved in a little bit, which was good. I think that offense is still kind of finding its stride with some new pieces. This is like unanimous pause in the Discord here for Trevor Lawrence. So I think we got an easy one there. How about CJ Stroud? I'm gonna pause as well on CJ Stroud. I could share why in a little bit, but 14-9 defensive battle from the Rams. But or are we panicking a little more? This is 2 years in a row, right? Stroud has a great rookie season. Last year struggles a little bit. And this week, I mean, 9 points. Nico never really got going there. All right, Sean's starting some panic. Brock's pausing. Monkey's panicking. All right, this is obviously different than Trevor Lawrence. So we're seeing a little adjustment in Jacksonville, but 2 seasons in a row with high expectations for CJ Stroud. Sean, the line is awful. That was probably the biggest concern going in, right? I like to spend a lot of time on the O-lines. Texans were the worst. There was 1 week I got in a little bit of a professional, nothing crazy argument on the X there, the old Twitter channel, with Lance Zierlein, who's I didn't know at the time was covering the Texans, but I know he's covered fantasy and done some NFL coverage, and he's defending the Texans line. And I'm like, this line was horrible last year, and they let their best guys go. I think they're working a lot on chemistry in that Houston locker room, but chemistry doesn't win football games. So my thought is this is just taking a little bit longer. I'm still going with the pause button, but I mean, if we're looking to win this year, I could definitely see those panic buttons. And hey, could you move a CJ Stroud? I'm not sure, but I think maybe for those dynasty teams in your league that are saying, hey, it's only week 1, maybe we get ahead of that O-line not recovering, Joe Mixon being out. We didn't really see the receivers step up, right? If you get a well-coached team like the Rams who defend Nico and kind of smother him up a little bit, no one really stepped up. Kirk, Higgins, Noel. I think there's going to be a learning curve for those rookies, but how long can we wait? All right, I'm probably already breaking the rules with John Bowers. He's supposed to save the analyst for the Patreon. So I'm going to go ahead now. Bryce Young. Where are we with Bryce Young this week? Pause or panic there in Carolina. So they lose to the Jaguars. Jaguars were at home, but not an encouraging game for Bryce Young. Ooh, I got it all the way out on Sean. You're not even like panicking. You're just all the way out here. Hillbilly's pausing on Bryce Young. Took him wildly last year, right? He gets benched, reclaims himself. I think the Jaguars defense really stepped up. Big panic for Monkey Pack on Bryce Young. A lot of these guys, I like to kind of keep my poise week 1, not read into it. Last year, week 1, there were a lot of games that went south for teams, and a lot of those teams went on to have really good seasons. So I think it's up to us to determine that. But Bryce Young, 18 for 35, 154 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions are discouraging. But I think they just ended up trailing a bit. Tet McMillan, 5 for 68 is encouraging. He made like a back shoulder catch that was pretty impressive, showing some body control. But a little bit worried about the other receivers. Leggett, 3 for 10. I think not having Jalen Coker. You guys know I'm a cokehead. I'm on the bandwagon there for Jalen Coker. I think that really hurt him. Hunter Renfro's okay, 2 for 11, but I think they do need Coker back. But I think if they don't protect, he's going to have these type of games. So I'm a little more towards the panic side because I don't want too many of these games, but I'm not panicking too much. I mean, I would see what I could do if you could move him. So I guess I'm paused, but almost panic if there's such thing. Needs to use JT Sanders more. Man, Hillbilly, I don't know what I think of JT Sanders. Like, he's just kind of decent receiving tight end, 2 for 27. My boy Tommy Tremble was 1 for 2. I don't think that counts, though. But I'm wondering if Sanders has limitations, or is that just Bryce Young? But you would think they'd get the tight end more involved. We'll see as that goes forward. I'm interested to talk a little bit more about the tight ends later in the show because there's some guys that we might want to panic about, but we have two different segments tonight. Let me keep going through the rapid fire here. How about Bo Nix, last quarterback here of our crew? Pause or panic on Bo Nix? How about JB throwing Bo Nix into the Wolves here? Week 1, we're all high on him, but they kind of squeak one out versus the Titans. 20-12 game. Bo Nix, 25 of 40, 176 yards, 1 touchdown. Where are we at on that? I'm seeing the pauses coming. Sean's buying on Bo Nix. I like that, Sean. Hey, if there's a time to buy a quarterback that, we had in our top 12 or pretty darn close in the rankings, still threw the ball 40 times. It just didn't quite materialize. Sutton, decent game, 6 for 61 with the touchdown. So that didn't hurt at all. Monkey Pack not worrying at all. Chip Diamonds, Broncos will be fine. I do agree there. I think the Broncos definitely will be fine. I think they're still finding their way a little bit too, but 151 yards combined rushing between Harvey, Dobbins, for Troy Franklin stepping up a little bit. I do think they need another receiver, so Evan Ingram with 3 for 21, he's getting a little bit long in the tooth. Ingram, hopefully there's still some production out of him this year. It'd be nice if they had a really nice compliment to go along with Sutton. We'll see how much they could squeeze out of Marvin Mims as we go. So I'm with you guys. I'm pausing, although I would like to see them have another guy to compliment Sutton, but hopefully a combination of those backs, Ingram, it gets going for Sean Payton. They definitely have the coaching to adjust, no doubt. And let's go to the backfield here. I'll go out of order. Let's just stay in Denver and look at RJ Harvey. Pause or panic on Harvey. 6 carries. I think we all be wanting a little bit more than 6 carries and only 1 reception for -1 yard. We a little bit worried about Harvey there. Chip, quick opinion there. Harvey will get worked in more. Offense will develop. You like Ingram. Sutton is consistent. Sutton is the model of consistency. I think, Coach Payton did have a vision for Evan Ingram in that offense. I just worry about the tight end landscape in general. I think it's another year if you don't have the top guys, you have to have a few tight ends on your roster and play the matchups and kind of see how that goes. And I think Harvey will get worked in more. We got to be aware of that. Buka or Brees, let's come back to that SCO there. I got to stay on the rapid fires, but if you want to save that a little towards the end of the show after we get through the rapid fires, I am glad to match up any different players or matchups, trades that you're looking at. Anything else you want to cover that week 1 that we didn't go. So I'll go a little more rapid fire here than I am. You guys get me talking. I don't have John, so I'm trying to keep up with the John Bauer word count there. I'm with you on Harvey. Pause. It's just too early to panic on a rookie. The only pause or maybe near panic I do have is Denver. I think Tyler Beatty got in there as well. Again, really like to see them feature Harvey. All right, Sean's challenging. Rapid fire. Let's go. Omari and Hampton. Pause, panic. Where are we at with Hampton there? Saw Najee get in the game. It was a pass-happy game scripted with the Chargers. I'm gonna pause on Hampton. I think he's still a dude. Hillbilly's buying on Hampton. I think he's definite buy. Caleb Johnson is on this list. I see Chip pausing on Hampton. I think it's going to be unanimous pause on Hampton. I think we all know the talent is there. I think there's a little bit more of the product of the game script. And, again, another rookie that just needs a little bit of time, but I think that volume will come when it's needed. So, yeah, that's right, Mitch. We're going solo tonight, man. Run and gun here without Mitch and John holding down the fort. Caleb Johnson, pause or panic. Where are we at with Caleb? And then the Pittsburgh situation was interesting. How about the fireworks there with New York and Pittsburgh? You talked to me pregame. I was telling you that was going to be 9-6 or 13-10. Instead, we got 34-32 Pittsburgh. But despite having 34 points, Caleb Johnson gets 1 carry. This is probably the best guy for the show, pause or panic. 34 points in Pittsburgh. Jaylen Warren gets 11 carries. Kenneth Gainwell, we heard might be a pain, gets 7 carries. Didn't do much with him, only 19 yards for Kenneth Gainwell. But 1 carry for Caleb Johnson, 0 catches. And we know this is an Arthur Smith offense. We've got, what do we have here? Hillbilly's buying. Also teaching you're teaching patience, hillbillies. But I don't know, man. Could you be patient with just one carry? Like where is Caleb Johnson in the game plan? I liked his college film, but it does feel like Jalen Warren's the feature guy, and Kenneth Gainwell's that gnat that's going to annoy us. Sean is pausing, but he's not buying, so there's a little bit of caution there. Panic was already setting in, Chip says, in camp. I have to agree there. So, all right, so we're a little bit mixed there, but a little bit more patience from the chat here with Caleb Johnson. Oh, you better believe Cowboys. Let's go week 2. They are gonna just rack up the Giants. My DFS lineup's ready, but I'm not gonna be a homer yet here. I don't have any Cowboys yet on the list, but we could talk Dallas later if you like. What about Isaiah Pacheco? All right, last running back here on the pause or panic, guys. If you heard me in the past pods, I was in on Pacheco. I just thought he was going to be falling into the end zone. I was waiting for a little more Kareem Hunt decline. Rashee Rice was out. Xavier Worthy gets injured. And we still see guys like Tyrone Thornton and Hollywood Brown be featured in that pass game. They stood pass heavy instead of going to the run. I'm seeing panic out, not good. Guys, you're not helping my what happened to that patience? You're not helping my confidence for my Pacheco shares. With 5 carries, 25 yards, Hunt 5 for 16. So it's definitely a platoon role. If you know how I watch footballs on Sundays, I've got 3 big screens in the living room, and then I got the iPad for whatever game I can't fit. But YouTube, you can normally put 3-4 games on a screen. So I'm watching every game, and my eyes just fluctuate to whoever has the ball. Obviously looking for my guy. So I'm looking for Pacheco, hoping he has a role. And man, there was like really no rhyme or reason. He'd be in 1 or 2 plays in a series, and then Hunt was in there 1 or 2. Brashard Smith, we didn't quite see Smith yet. So I don't know if it's his time. But I'm hoping there's a little bit more run game for Pacheco. But guys, I'm with you on the panic there. I'm going to say I'm paused, but almost panic. I'm hoping just a little more time, something plays out there. All right, we're going to go to receiver now. All right, pause or panic, Brian Thomas. We talked about Trevor Lawrence. Everybody in this chat seemed patient. Are you still patient on Brian Thomas? Because we drafted him high, right? Brian Thomas, after an awesome year last year, awesome rookie season, he was first round, second round, depending what format we're in, draft pick. Sean's pausing and buying. I mean, for 31 attempts, so Lawrence wasn't necessarily sharp, right? 19 to 31. There's still some concern of Lawrence, but we like the offense. We still like the talent and the coach, and we're staying optimistic. But how Brian Thomas is 1 for 11, although that reverse was beautiful. It kind of saved our fantasy days on that reverse. At least we got a touchdown there. Jason Breakers tuning a little late. It is a solo show tonight, man. Bauer's got a hamstring injury like George Kittle, and Mitch is attending to important matters in Utah. So we're holding it down here. They were trying to feed Hunter, Chip. I agree with that. It was nice to see him get involved. 6 for 33. I mean, I think they have 2 superstars at receiver. We really do need Trevor Lawrence to keep stepping it up. ETN was gold. We'll talk about ETN in the next rapid fire segment I have that's a little bit different here. They trade Tank Bigsby, so maybe a little news we'll throw into the rapid fire here. Tank Bigsby goes to Philadelphia. My thoughts on Tank. I always like Tank. You know, I love those guys in the gym that are workout warriors. I think he's a younger, faster version of A.J. Dillon that could get Philadelphia those tough yards, but could also return kicks. I think he'll push Shipley a little bit. And if Shipley's not healthy, he gives him a better number 2 to spell Barkley now and then. So that'll be interesting to watch there. But that definitely opens it up clear for ETN. And then for all you Rochelle Tootin truthers out there, that's really encouraging. And my LaQuint Allen, who was even in that game before Tank went in the game, only 1 carry. He was in on some passing downs. He had a catch. That breathes a little life into LaQuint Allen there. So if you need a deep flyer, if for some reason he's open in your dynasty leagues, I say get LaQuint Allen as a flyer in case someone gets hurt. But we'll see how that plays out. But I'm with you guys. I think we all know BTJ is good. I think we do got to be patient. There's big days coming ahead. So, all right, who we got next? Calvin Ridley. Pause, panic. Where we at with Ridley? The Titans office was interesting. It might bring up some thoughts on Cam Ward here, but they lose 20-12 to Denver. That's a brutal week 1 matchup for a rookie quarterback. Watch the game. I thought Cam Ward had some moxie there for a rookie quarterback in Denver week one. Again, one of the worst week one places to play, especially for a rookie. But needless to say, that offense was kind of lethargic there. And for fantasy production, if you're high on Ridley, where does that leave you? Buckeyes pausing. Sean's pausing, I guess. Sean, that's not conviction there. Where's the conviction, Sean? But you're pausing as well. Hillbilly's pausing, but he killed Cam with those drops. A lot of those receivers killed Cam. I got to say that between drops, rookies running the wrong routes. That was a little bit of a rough day. So 4 for 27 for Ridley with a long of 13. Chig 3 for 19. AU Manor 2 for 13. It was kind of pedestrian. 12 for 28 for Ward on the day with a mere 112 yards. We definitely need more than that. And Ward's not running either, so he did not run the ball once. So that didn't help either there. But it sounds like we're pretty much hard pause. And I agree. I think the matchups are going to get better for Cam Ward. I think those receivers will chip away and develop, and they'll get really open. It is another team that, again, they're building, they're rebuilding, trying to figure out that offense. They need some more weapons on that offense long term. Hopefully, A.O. Manor could be that guy, as Hillbilly's saying he looks like their best receiver. He got high praise coming out of camp, so he's flashing again a little bit here. It'll be interesting to watch, but I do like Cam Ward. He just needs more weapons around him, and hopefully there's better times for Ridley. All right, I'm getting away from the rapid fire again. T. Higgins, pause or panic on T. What do we think of that Cincinnati game there? Battle versus the Browns, the dysfunctional Browns, taking advantage probably of, we know the Bengals have some defensive struggles. They definitely have some O-line struggles. Joey B only threw it 23 times. I think that's a factor, but Higgins 3 for 33. We're hoping for a little bit more there. Even Jamar Chase 2 for 26. Maybe JB, should you put Jamar Chase in the pause or panic? Well, I'm seeing pauses across the board. I don't think anyone here has any doubt on the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm going to keep moving on the Bengals and just say, hopefully they keep shoring up that O-line, get this offense going. Encouraging for Chase Brown, 21 carries, only 43 yards. I do believe this is an underrated Cleveland defense. If their offense just, Flacco's a good game manager, 290 yards. Again, 2 picks is kind of the curse of Flacco and the Browns. But they were close to pulling that off. But definitely better offensive days ahead for the Bengals. All right, we get to talk a little Cowboys now. How about George Pickens, guys? Pause or panic? Man, we went from out on him when he was with the Steelers. And man, I think back, I was so, me, the coach of me, I was so down on him with body language and the way he was acting in Pittsburgh. But I could not move him on any of my teams. I had a ton of Pickens shares from being a Georgia Bulldog fan. Could not move him. Goes to the Cowboys, and I couldn't obtain him. And really high on him with the Cowboys. But this week one game, it was a CeeDee Lamb show despite those drops, and Pickens was 3 for 30. Where are we? I'm seeing the pauses across the board. I think Monkey puts it best there, man. Monkey Pack, right? Inconsistency is maddening, especially, I loved how Coach Schottenheimer in his debut had the Cowboys prepared for that game. They used more motion more than they ever did last year. They cut their penalties down. They moved the ball. After the storm, they kind of went flat a little bit. I thought they stopped attacking the weak points in the exposed Eagles secondary a little bit. I think they'll definitely get back to that. The Giants are always a cure for that coming up here in week 2. So I think everybody's here with the pause and recognizing, hey, there'll be some highs and lows, better times ahead. Chip, man, Dak did look good. Big jobs from CD could have changed the game. That was a fun game, man. Hurts is such a game manager. I love his legs. He's very careful throwing the ball. I think, as an Eagles fan, you probably hope for a little more out of A.J. Brown. I know the A.J. Brown owners over there, 1 catch for 8. That's another one that could have been on the pause or panic. But I think it was just 2 quarterbacks managing the offenses in different ways, and I think both of their offenses will have some big weeks ahead. But the Eagles definitely better fix that secondary, and, the Cowboys still got some work to do on D. All right, Nico Collins, pause or panic. Are we there with Stroud with the panic? We were panicking on Stroud earlier. Is the same thing, and Nico? Are they one and the same? For as high as we were drafting Nico and the Rams, they have a good defense, but not necessarily like top of the league. they're on the rise. I mean, this Rams team could be a Super Bowl contender if healthy, but to hold Nico to 3 for 25 was a little depressing. Definitely, who else do they throw to? The rookies are still growing, have to evolve. And when Xavier Hutchinson's getting good playing time, that could be a little bit of concern there. So, Sean, I think I'm with you, man. If we're going to panic on Stroud, we're probably panicking a little bit with Nico. We'll see if they can figure out that O-line and how to get these guys involved. What about Terry McLaurin? Last wide receiver, then we'll switch to tight ends. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Detroit before we go to our final rapid fire of the night, which is going to be another fun one. But T-Mac, Terry McLaurin, we know he held out, missed a bit of camp. Hey, came out healthy. That's a good thing after missing a little bit of camp. But in a game where you're playing the New York Giants, 2 for 27 isn't exactly excited. Chip's a little bit worried about Scary. Could regress to his old self. Hey, we had a lot of touchdowns last year, right? If that touchdown regression's there and Debo's looking good like we talked about. Now, Sean's pausing because I think, hey, we got him leaving Jaden Daniels, right? 19 to 30 wasn't his best, but I mean, he looked good at times. I mean, you definitely see the talent there still in Jaden Daniels. Debo definitely was a good addition with that 7 for 77. I think it was a nice matchup for Debo too. So I think this was a game that kind of featured him a little more than Scary Terry McLaurin there. Bill at running back, 10 for 82, boys. That was, once I saw Chris Rodriguez was inactive, I knew this was the rise of Bill. I'm against the anti-aging Austin Eckler there, who was 6 for 26. It was all right, right? 3 catches for Eckler. He did his usual, but encouraging for Bill. I think the Niners, I'm reading Niners here because Sean's scared Niners fan. I think Washington's a team that's going to be fine, man. So I'm pausing on Terry McLaurin there and hoping to see more production moving forward. Debo will get hurt, you promise, but potentially, Sean. Although I don't think they're using him the same way as San Francisco, running out of the backfield. They might be using him a little bit smarter. I think he got himself in great shape with something to prove this year. But if the past is any indicator, he has been made out of glass. Let's go back. Let's talk about San Francisco, though. George Kittle, IR, 4 weeks. Pause or panic on George Kittle. Not getting any younger, right? Came out blazing in the game there. Was looking good early. It's like, oh, this is going to be a George Kittle game. And then all of a sudden, after that touchdown and 4 for 25, he's out and out for 4 weeks. Good question here in the chat. I guess relates to CJ Stroud and Texans that we're talking about. If you had to start one this week, who are you going with, CJ Stroud or Danny Dimes? Now, the way I kind of play fantasy is starting after our pod. I normally get into next week's matchups pretty hardcore for DFS. I have not done that yet, but based on last week, I'm going Danny Dimes, probably no matter what. If I go to week 2, just to see matchups, I am a little bit curious right now. The Houston Texans, Colts got the Broncos, but they are in Indianapolis. It's not in Mile High, not in that thick air there. Not the best matchup, but I really love the weapons around them. The Texans got the Bucks. Oh, man, but now that could be like a high-scoring affair too, right? In Houston, potential shootout. Vegas totals 42 in that Houston game, where the Colts game, it's 41.5, so it's pretty close. Man, what do you guys think? Danny Dimes or CJ Stroud next week if you're faced with that decision? That's a great one. I think they both could do well because, hey, Dimes got the tougher matchup. Stroud's got the more questionable situation. I just feel like rolling the dice on Dimes, but that could be gross. All right. Next one here in the rapid fire. I think we were pausing on Kittle. David Njoku, Cleveland, man. Man, I know you guys were high on him in the preseason, right? Harold Fannin week. If he's on your waiver wires, we are all pouncing on Harold Fannin, right? The Browns said, we don't care if he's a rookie. We are featuring Harold Fannin, and he's going to have a great game. Fannin was 7 for 63, long of 22. Njoku was only 3 for 37. Are we pausing or panicking with the Browns tight end situation there? Pause or panic on David Njoku. That's tough, man. I know Flacco's slinging it for as long as he's got the starting gig, which could be the whole year, the way the Browns are treating their quarterback situation. They hate Shador for some reason. Judy was 5 for 66. Dylan Sampson, 8 catches for 64 out of the backfield. That's why everyone's high on him. We'll remember him for the next segment. Didn't run as good, but he was great out of the passing game. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't seem too ideal for the tight end situation there. Jay's pausing. All right. Monkey's pausing, but nervous. I think if they're running 2 tight ends and Fannon's getting that work, hey, maybe it was matchup specific. I think that's what we're kind of hoping for, a specific matchup to feature Fannin there, go with those 2 tight end sets. But it could definitely be a trade candidate there. Mark Andrews, pause or panic. All right, Baltimore game. All right, that fireworks. There's nothing worse than seeing your fantasy player. If you have Andrews and the Ravens in Buffalo playing this 41-40 shootout, 81 points in that game. And Mark Andrews, I'm pulling up his stats here. If I could work a mouse. All right, Mark Andrews. Oof, this is brutal. 1 catch for 5 yards. So 1 catch for 5 yards in an 81-point game. Are you pausing or panic on Andrews? I mean, be more like, where are we at here? Yep, you get 2 targets in a 40-point game. That makes me want to cry. Be more like Lamar, buying likely. I think you are. Like, we know he's injured right now. This is probably a great buy low time. I mean, I'm not saying Andrews is washed, but I think for what we're expecting out of him, the way he ended last year, I think the lack of opportunity. Now, Buffalo's got a good defense. They may be one of the better teams covering the tight end. Zay Flowers, 7 for 143. I think Zay's in for a very big year. But outside of Zay, man, it's like Bateman has his games. He's more of a best ball receiver. Nuke has a role, but you would definitely think Mark Andrews would do more than that. But we will see. Talking about a slow start last year, too, with Andrews. That's a good point, Chip. So, hey, could be a product of the slow start. We'll see. But I just think the dynamic of the tight end situation and my rosters, I'm doing everything I can to get Brock McBride. And if I can't get those 2, it's Warren or Loveland. I think after week 1, Loveland's the potential buy because everyone else just had big games or were featured. All right, last one of this rapid fire, Elijah Arroyo. And then we're going to talk a little Detroit. And then I got one more game for us to wrap up the show here. And maybe in that one, I promise to really go rapid fire. So that Seattle situation, that was one I was curious about. All right. For all of us that, hey, if we don't have those big tight ends and we're trying to replace them with 2-3 tight ends and find that diamond in the rough as a rookie, you're hoping Arroyo could be used as a receiver. All the great talk around the draft from Seattle and all that coaches speak this offseason. Then you get to the game and he's almost invisible, 1 for 7. AJ Barner had 1 catch. So neither tight end did well, but they're splitting time. Passing game, Sam Darnold, 16 for 23, 150. That might be a little bit concerning there. I know the Niners have a good defense, but so does Seattle. So that was definitely a defensive battle. I got Hillbilly pausing on Arroyo, Big Diaz energy pausing on all rookies. Man, I love that, man. Hey, preach that, pausing on all rookies. And then you have Chip got to be worried about Walker. That's a little bit of concern, too. I would say I'd pause on Kenneth Walker just because he was coming off that injury. I don't think he's healthy. Charbonnet is more consistent, solid, got the touchdown, did a little bit more with his yards on this day, but doesn't necessarily, Walker's got that explosive ceiling. So I think Sharps will continue to be solid as you're identifying, Chip. But I would pause on Kenneth Walker right now, even though we're on the tight end segment here. So, guys, hey, that was fun, man. Hey, 35 minutes into the show, some intriguing plays, intriguing players that are on our Dynasty rosters that we definitely have reason to either pause or panic on. Let's touch on Detroit right now. Detroit, is it a downtrodden Detroit once again? We had concerns this offseason, didn't we? Some O-line concerns. Some offensive coordinator concerns, tough to match what the Lions did last year. I was a little concerned going into this game as I was just a little high on the Packers. I thought a team that was a Super Bowl contender in Green Bay, then they go get my boy Micah. I I don't know. Was it either just a Jared Goff, one of those road games where the team just, it wasn't their night and they just never could quite get in that rhythm, get the run game going, or are we panicking? Jay Sully's got the Detroit Lion panic there for sure. I mean, you look at the weapons that this team has. When you have Gibbs and Montgomery, Sun God, J-Mo, Laporta, from a fantasy day there, I mean, Monty was 11 for 25, Gibbs 9 for 19. Like Gibbs, guys, we're hearing like number one overall talk in drafts, and he goes 9 for 19. He did catch 10 balls, which is awesome for Gibbs, but only turned 31 yards out of them. So still getting touches. Laporta 6 for 79. That's not bad from the tight end position. Obviously, would have liked to seen him in the end zone. Sun God 4 for 45 for where we're drafting him. We need more. J-Mo, we're hoping for a breakout season, 4 for 23. I'm seeing more pauses than panic here. The offense is definitely jacked. I think they will make adjustments, have better matchups than Green Bay. And even when they play Green Bay again, it'll be at home. And I think there'll definitely be a scary offense at home. So sounds like we're not panicking, guys. I'm with you there. We're going to keep the faith on Detroit for our boy Mitch there. He needs them to be doing well. And so do our dynasty rosters. And yeah, Tulsa, man, Tesla there with amazing catch at the end. That was a highlight for him. We know they traded Tim Patrick, which says what they think of this young rookie. I just worry there's enough balls to go around for him, but I think he's definitely working his way in. Only one catch for a touchdown this game, but probably their true number 3 receiver, or will grow into that. I think Khalif Raymond's still getting sprinkled in there, but Tesla has a nice little dynasty stash. So, okay, let's go with this one here. Buy or buy? In other words, are you buying or are you saying goodbye to these players here? Justin Fields. Are you buying Justin Fields after last week's performance? Or are you saying goodbye and selling high to Justin Fields based on that outbreak game, man? One of the most polarizing guys that we say cannot throw the ball. But, man, guys, Pittsburgh did want to keep him last year. They couldn't come to contract terms. Fields takes a better opportunity with the Jets. And versus what we believe is a good Steelers defense, just rocks out 16 for 22, 218 yards and a pass and touchdown, does his typical 12 for 48 rushing with 2 rushing touchdowns. That is fantasy gold. So this could be getting interesting, Chad. Jay Jackson's, he's saying goodbye to him. Sco's saying goodbye to him. Hillbillies, if you could afford them. There's someone asking more than they want. Monkey. So you guys are all getting rid of Fields. You think that week 1 is just a little bit of a fluke? Stock is high right now. I think I'm with you. I'm selling Justin Fields high. All right, I'm truly going to go rapid fire, but that's a good take there. What about Aaron Rodgers, other side of the ball? Older than dust, guys. Aaron Rodgers, we're talking dynasty here, right? We don't really go with old players. Are you saying goodbye to Aaron Rodgers after throwing for 244 and 4 touchdowns? Or are you feeling nostalgic and going to buy Aaron Rodgers to give yourself a little depth or maybe a QB2 on your roster because you could afford the old man? Chip says last diamond. What do you think? You buying him? Chip's saying goodbye still. Goodbye from the Woo Bear. Woo Bear 80. I like that name. I don't know what it means, but I like that name. Monkey Pack seems to be buying if he's cheap. Right? We like cheap. We like discounts in Dynasty. There's got to be somebody that's willing to want to just move Rodgers, looking for a draft pick. I mean, I guess it depends if you need, like Brock Purdy's questionable this week. If Brock Purdy's your quarterback number 2, what's cheap to you for Aaron Rodgers? I don't want to give a second-round draft pick for him because I always feel like we could turn a second-round pick into a stud. But I'd be more than happy to give you a third, a fourth, third, and some bench player maybe if I need that quarterback on my lineup. All right, Javonte Williams, saying goodbye or buying? Come on, boys. My Dallas Cowboy, Javonte Williams, he looked kind of spry week 1. Definitely solidified that he's their feature back. Has the Giants coming up this week, so I think there's another good opportunity there. I mean, only 15 carries. This isn't like 20-plus carries, but 15 carries, took advantage of 54 yards, got the goal line work with 2 touchdowns, and then 2 catches for 10 yards. We know Javonte could catch. Jay Jackson's actually buying him. I'm with you. Woo Bears think you got to buy. Hillbilly's selling. Hillbilly, if we're in any leagues together, I'll buy him off you. Zach's buying Rodgers for 2/3. Going back to that one, I like that, Zach. That's a good rate there. Monkey Pack's buying him, but he's not going to buy him. So yeah, I know sometimes they could fit in that category, but we're just not really willing to give it up. I'll say this about Dallas, just watching the team as closely as I do believe he's their feature back for the year. I think if Jaden Blue learns enough of that offense and be consistent, he's going to pass Miles Sanders off pretty soon, because that run that Miles broke, Jaden Blue would have taken to the house. I think ultimately at some point this year, Williams and Blue will be the 1-2 with Javonte being the feature. The question we have is where does Dallas go with this next year? They've got a lot of draft capital that they could maybe finally invest in running back. But if the pass is an indicator, they won't do that because they're Jerry's stubborn. We'll see. All right, Travis Etienne, Jags boys. All right, we got duped in the offseason, right? I think they were showcasing Tank Bigsby. That's where all that hype was. They did a good job of hyping him up and kind of give him a little opportunity until Tank put those, like, I don't know, emojis on the X, and then I think he knew he was duped and wasn't getting an opportunity. But Travis Etienne, 16 for 143. Isn't that the Etienne we saw a couple years ago where, first round quality there? Hillbillies, I did watch the Cowboys documentary. Absolutely loved it. Hillbillies, how could you even ask me that? Did I watch the documentary? Come on now, man. That's like asking if I'm like a Cowboys fan. Of course I did. But yeah, it was awesome. I loved it. But Travis Etienne, 16 for 143, 3 for 13 receiving. He is their guy. Bigsby's 5 carries will go away. They'll probably go to Tootin, who'll go from like 3 to 8, or LaQuint Allen will get a couple more. Are we buying Travis Etienne? I think I'm buying. I liked this guy a couple of years ago. And I think it was just been a matter of health and the team struggles, but Monkey Pack's with me here. Sly is with me. Sly Stallone. No, I'm kidding. Sly Salinas. Buy for a second. 100% for a second, Sly. I will send my second to you so fast for ETN. The first, I might pull a Coach Dan. If I really need a running back, I'll take ETN plus. Although I'm reluctant to do that, but I'm buying with you. Chasing Breakers. Would you hold ETN or use this to try and tear up for him to buy someone like JT? That's a great one, man. Like JT, I think, is one of the better backs in the National Football League. So, hey, am I worried? I think Tootin's a freak athlete that's going to have a role that's going to expand a little bit over time. I think ETN, sometimes, he's not always going to break those big ones like a long of 71. And when he doesn't break that long of 71, if he's only getting 16 or less carries, you're probably going to have, instead of 16 for 143, you're going to have 16 for 71 and hope he gets in the end zone, hope he gets some catches. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to tear up there. And Jonathan Taylor's a guy I would do it as long as that Colts offense is operating like it did last week, and I think it will. Although DJ Giddens, I was mad because I had Taylor in DraftKings, and once that game was a little bit out of hand, not by a lot though, like they weren't just destroying them. Like I thought they still could have kept the foot on the gas pedal a little longer, but they kept the weapons in, but they took Taylor out and they were feeding Giddens with confidence. So I'd be encouraged if I had him on my roster as an RB2. J.K. Dobbins, buy, sell. He's the feature guy. Harvey didn't get the rock, right? He's in that Sean Payton, you're a rookie, you're going to earn it. We're giving it to the veteran here, and J.K. Dobbins. Dobbins looked good with the Chargers last year. You need a running back. You have an offer on the table. Do you give a second for Dobbins? Do you give 2/3, a third in a player? What do you think? Saying goodbye or buying J.K. Dobbins? I think we worry about his health a little bit sometimes. Hillbilly's selling. Chip's selling J.K. when you can. Only a matter of time till he breaks down again. I think you have to worry about him breaking down and then, RJ Harvey eventually rising. So I think it sounds like we're all cashing out and saying goodbye there. Hey, if you got him on your rosters, man, we get back to that Discord. Let's see if we can move him this week. What about Dylan Sampson there? Got a lot of passing volume. RIP Jerome Ford, whatever I heard about him. I had him in like one dynasty lineup with the Bengals as a playback, and Ford was awful. But But Sampson flashed, but now we got Quishon Junkins, I believe, going to be practicing this week, so he'll probably get eased into it and ultimately be their feature back. Where are you at, Dylan Sampson? He flashed, had a pretty decent game in the, as far as the passing game. What do you think, Dylan Sampson? My man Sampson says Hillbilly has. Ollie Gordon the third or Dobbins? Good question there, Geist. I'm going to say Dobbins. I sold Ollie Gordon last week because I think his stock's going to be higher than it ever been. I'm just so out on Miami. I'm just wondering if last week was the sell window on Ollie Gordon. Sampson hemmed up by the Bengals. He definitely was. People at me for buying him for thirds. You could get a second for Sampson, I'd cash out. I'm with you there on Sampson, man. So I think we're all selling on Dylan Sampson. Hey, let's go to receivers now. We got some interesting ones here. 4 more guys here before we close out the show. Keon Coleman, buying or selling? Actually, I got a couple more guys in notes. I'll leave it up to you guys how much we get through this here. But Keon Coleman 8 this week, guys. I know it was a fireworks kind of game. Are you buying Keon Coleman thinking, hey, you're too breakout tight to Josh Allen, or does he need to stack games for you? I'm seeing the buys come in here on Keon. Keon, man, he was fun to watch this week. Really was. Somehow in my stats, I went back 2 years of like Buffalo passing here. I don't know what the heck I did in my ESPN box scores. I don't think I'd give a first for him. I'm where Chip is because I got an offer today. Someone was giving me Keon Coleman for a first. And I just, as much as I do believe in Keon Coleman, I couldn't give up that first. So it depends on the price for chasing breakers. Kevin, also, I don't think he's a first. But does this become one where we regret it if we don't give up that first and Keon maintains this week after week? 8 for 112 and a touchdown. That was a thing of beauty. The Baltimore defense isn't bad. Like, this is a decent defense. It's just the tempo of that game and 2 elite quarterbacks. It turned into a fireworks show. He does have the physical ability to be an alpha. I know he's not the fastest guy, but I think he seems to be working himself into a really good wide receiver. It's just a matter of him getting the volume. So Chip's also right. I don't think an owner's selling him for a second. Maybe we do trade the first and do we get Keon in a second? Maybe that's the way we got to go in this one. So what about Zay Flowers? Same game. Zay to me is the most polarizing receiver. I think Mitch John and I have always been opposite on him. I've always been aggressive trading for Zay Flowers. I have given a first before. I just love the number 1 receiver tied to Lamar. And he breaks out 7 for 143 and a touchdown. You see they're featuring him, trying to get him the ball. One thing I ever really worry about Zay is injury. He's not the biggest wide receiver for the volume that he gets. Are we buying or saying goodbye to Zay Flowers after also an awesome week 1? I see Woo Bear is in. He's buying. Woo Bear, do you give a first for Flowers? Are you buying that much? That's what I want to know. We wouldn't give the first for Keon, or at least we were a little reluctant to. Did we give the first for Zay after that week 1? Got him, Dino, Woo Bear. This is not the week to try and buy Zay chasing breakers. And that's a good point too, right? Hey, we want him. We like him. Maybe you wait a week and go from there. Sly's buying. Yes, a first for Zay for Nick. I'm with you guys. I might have to go back to give him first for Zay for those that still don't believe in him. Like, I don't think he's, Brian Thomas type elite. I don't think he's like up there, but I think his production over the course of the year, I just feel like he's getting to a point in that offense where we're going to see more of the 7 for 143s than the 5 for 80s. I don't know. Late first, Sly. That's a good point, Sly. We're not definitely not giving away a gem first there. If I'm, it's going to be a contending team. My team is in it for the title. It's going to be a late first. That's what I'd be willing to do, attached to Lamar, as Nick's saying, for the foreseeable future. What more would you ask? What are you asking here, Nick? What more could you ask for with the first? Hmm. I think if you're giving up that first for Zay, and we know, hey, there are a lot. I think if John was on the show right now, he'd probably say no. I think historically he's never been a Zay guy, but hey, we have to take a stance in Dynasty, right? And that's part of the beauty of the show is we disagree, and that helps us form educated opinions. So if we're kind of split on that, that team's looking to move Zay. They're probably happy to move Zay um, for that first, but we're asking for a little bit more. Hey, do you get a third? I mean, you could ask for a second and try to negotiate, maybe get lucky if they just want to stack firsts on their roster. But probably maybe get a third with Zay, or maybe there's a bench player that could kind of help you there. And then if you want to be a Coach Dan, I always ask him to throw in a little fab for good measure. I always try to get every little edge I could get. I don't know, it's just that art of negotiation I like. How about Quentin Johnson? Buying or saying goodbye to Quentin Johnson? Here's another one of those polarizing guys, right? He goes off with the Chargers. I saw John Bauer this week, man. He's in a bunch of my leagues, and I saw him buying Quentin left and right for second and a third. John had a few creative offers that I'm sure he'll share in the Discord there. Where are you on Quentin Johnson as part of that Chargers passing game? Play the Chiefs, 27-21 win for the Chargers. Ladd only gets 6 for 74. That's the guy we needed to shine was Ladd, right? Instead, it's Quentin Johnson with 5 for 79 and 2 touchdowns. Where are we? Theo, man, good to see you here in the chat. Monkey's saying goodbye. Not a fan of QJ. So let's say you have QJ. You're not a fan of a monkey, but you got him on your roster. You've been trying to unload him, right? But you weren't getting enough for him before, right? Now he goes 5 for 79 and 2 touchdowns. Are you selling him like the owners did to John Bauer for a second and a third? I mean, for me, oh man, here would be my case. I would probably say, I don't know if I could give up a second for Quentin Johnson, although I'm getting the vibe that he's going to have a real good year. My only concern is there's a few mouths to feed with Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen, but if Justin Herbert's going to make 318 and 3 touchdowns the norm, hey, he may not have 2 touchdowns every game, but he only needs 1 to house it with his athletic ability as long as he could catch the ball. Sly's buying, coming from a QJ hater, go blue. I love that, Sly. So you're buying. You going to move second round draft picks this week for him? That again, that's what I saw JB doing in a few leagues. A second, and a third, where he had to probably. I think if you need help at the wide receiver position, the Chargers seem like a good place to get it, as they are definitely ascending. Emeka Egbuka, you Egbuka fans, I always mangle that name. Egbuka really went off, man. He is. I think we were talking about 10 firsts for him in the Discord there in the Patreon. The Egbuka chat was live. I stacked some Tampa Bay games with Evans and Egbuka. Evans didn't exactly go off there. I would have liked a little more from him. 5 for 51, 4 for 67 for Emeka, but 2 touchdowns and some clutch ones, man. He looked good, but I don't think a first is going to get him. I don't know how much more I'd will. Do you offer a first and a second? I don't even know if that's going to get him now. So yeah, Hillbillies, I think you're right. He's going to be hard to afford in Tampa Bay. I think the sky's the limit. I'm really not worried about Godwin when he comes back. Too rich by chasing breakers. I agree. So I think we're all on the same page there. A couple other names. I'm not going to get into them, guys, but Hollywood Brown, Michael Pittman, Calvin Austin, Kayshon Boutte. There were some other receivers to kind of keep an eye on. I think I even saw John go after Kayshon Boutte. He was active this week with my boy JB. Kayshon Boutte, man, he flashed last year and all of a sudden might be doing it again in New England. Pop scores a touchdown, but only gets 1 catch for -2 yards. Stephon Diggs didn't really ascend as a wide receiver 1 there. I'm trying to find that box score here for New England because that was, I thought, one of the more curious ones. Calvin Austin, I'm out on, but He's definitely the answer and not Roman Wilson. For us stashing Roman Wilson on our bench, like just forget about it. I played Roman Wilson on a couple lineups as a tournament sleeper in DFS because he was like bare minimum $3,000 cheap, so he could load up otherwise. And Roman Wilson did not sniff a ball. I was so excited. I saw this Ben Skoranek touchdown. I thought it was Roman. I was like, man, even Ben Skoranek's getting the ball before Roman Wilson. So that wasn't good at all. Calvin Austin went 4 for 70 in touchdowns, clearly the number 2. So for some reason, Calvin Austin's on waivers. Spend some money on him. I don't know how much I wouldn't give much for him, but he could help a team maybe bye weeks if you're thin at the position. And then Boutte, where is he? Probably mangling his name too. Buy Boutte for a third. I think third. There's enough indicators. 6 for 103 yards was his stat line this week. He definitely did a lot with his catches, and he flashed that last year. New England seems to be in on him. I think there's still a rebuilding team that does need help at receiver, but he might be the guy that sticks around. So that'll be interesting to watch. Tight end position, few guys that stood out: Juwan Johnson, Harold Fannin, and Kyle Pitts. Guys, Juwan Johnson, I almost want to throw up in the mouth here a little bit with the New Orleans Saints tight end position, as nothing's ever materialized. Every past year we've thought about it, but Juwan Johnson is the guy that got paid, and he is the guy that had a good game last week. 8 for 76. I mean, if you're struggling at the tight end position, if for some reason Johnson's on your waivers, which he can be in a couple of dynasty leagues, definitely spend some fab on him. I think his role is legit. No other tight end got in there. This isn't past Saints lineups. This is a Kellen Moore offense. Kellen Moore loved the tight end in Dallas, and he's carrying that over here. Even when he was in Philly, getting Goddard involved, I think Juwan Johnson's their guy, and they need him. It's Olave, Shaheed, Johnson, a little bit of Cooks, but Juwan Johnson was the only tight end there. Tucker Kraft breakout year, Woo Bear. I think that was the sentiment, man, with Tucker Kraft going in, and Jordan Love was efficient as could be, and Kraft was a big part of that offense. So I think Tucker Kraft's definitely moving himself into a solid top 12. How high? We'll see. That's going to be the question there. Fannin or Njoku? Hillbillies, man. Like, if we're going by a 1 week sample, it's Fannin. I don't want to overreact because it's only week 1. But they drafted him, they hyped him up in the preseason, and they backed it up week 1. I wouldn't do it straight up, but I would find a way to do it on your roster. And then Kyle Pitts, I can't believe we're even talking about Kyle Pitts again. But guys, I watched that game, right? Because I'm rooting for. I had some Tampa Bay Atlanta stacks. I always love watching Bijan. Love Drake London. Shame he got hurt late in the game, or else that game could have went overtime and London might have had some more stats. But Pitts was 7 for 59. Now, I don't know if that's just Mooney being out and he had to be featured a little bit more in that role, but he looked like he belonged for a change. Like, he didn't look terrible. Now, I don't think he's going to break out by any means, Pitts. So, like, you Pitts truthers and Hillbilly, my man, Pitts, 8 targets. Yeah, man, that is what you want to see. And I think you got it this week. So that's at least encouraging if you've had Pitts on your roster. I wouldn't overpay for him, but I think there's something there with Kyle Pitts. And we had one trade here. You guys gave Boutte and a second for Pollard on a Caleb Johnson team. Hey, we talked earlier in the show about being patient with Caleb Johnson. So, like, Boutte is not exactly exciting. So you sold while the stock was high. Gave up a second. I'm sure you're contending. That's a roster that you could do that for. And Tony Pollard's the guy there in Tennessee. I think he's definitely going to have a good season and help your running back situation. So I think that's a solid trade. Njoku, last year of his contract, could be moved, and team will definitely buy him. There's and that may be the direction Cleveland's going in. Still, getting out, dealing with that Deshaun Watson contract, and Myles Garrett's got a big contract. So if they could save money on Fannin, they probably will, and Njoku will give somebody else a real good tight end. So, hey, we're closing out the show. We have somehow hit the hour mark here. Guys, Dolphins offense, I'm out. Colts offense, I'm in. That was just a little bit towards the end of the show notes. I'll give it maybe 1 or 2 more minutes here. If there's anything else you want to talk about, anything we didn't cover from week 1, any trades you have or saw, If not, we'll definitely move it over into the Discord there. I will say I was out on the Dolphins before week 1. I was in on the Colts before week 1. My only regret with the Colts and Danny Dimes is I wasn't more aggressive on Dimes than I was. And that's just every once in a while I reflect back. We have some takes. We don't have enough conviction on them. I really think it's Danny Dimes' show for the long haul this year with all those weapons around him. And then the Dolphins, I don't see how that survives. Daniel Jones are 2 a week 2. We talked about Daniel Jones matchup, not liking that versus the Broncos, but it's at home in Indianapolis, and I think he could muster up enough offense. I don't know if I'm ever going to like Tua again. I hate to say that. That's probably just harsh, but man, they got O-line issues. They got Tyreek's just a head case. The TMZ reports are coming out right now already. Do they trade him at some point? Tua 14 for 23, 114 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. I mean, I think there's maybe some better games ahead for him. Let me see who we got week 2. And that's a good thing. When we look at matchups, as we get closer to game day, as I grind the DFS streets, I will have a lot more feedback on the matchups. Dolphins have the Patriots. Hey, I mean, anytime you get a Mike Vrabel team and his defenses, I'd be a little bit nervous. So I'm going to lean Dimes. Mover, hold Waddle. Sly, I think Waddle's made out of glass. I also think he's on a struggling team. I was offered a Waddle for a 27 first today, and I declined. So for me, I'm out on Waddle, and I would move him if you can. And it was actually a friend of the show, Scott Connor there, our boy Scott, who was making that a trade offer. And it was a very good trade offer. It was a roster that could actually use Waddle. If I'm going to give up a future first, I want someone a little bit better than Jalen Waddle. So, chat, you guys have been awesome, man. Thanks for hanging in with me on the solo pod tonight. We miss JB and Mitch, but they will be back next week. Hey, any more of these comments or player takes, let's take it over to the Patreon. Much love tonight. This is Coach Dan signing out. You guys have been awesome.